question is for you, Mr. Fraser. As a younger individual who is not long away from graduating and entering the workforce, I'd like to know how it is that you justify that the youth population is ultimately, it is us who will be burdened with the mounting debt and the interest payments of this province that have been created by the party that you support.
Oh, very good.
In 2003, when our government took power, we inherited a $6 billion deficit. We had a $6 billion deficit. We balanced the budget, and then in 2008, there came a global economic calamity. And every government, provincial government, Stephen Harper and the federal government, and Larry O'Brien and the city government borrowed billions of dollars to invest in infrastructure and those services that people depend on, like post-secondary education, like high schools. And then, what's happening now is we have a 5-year plan to get to 2017, 2018, balance our budget in a prudent way that protects services at the same time as balancing our budget. And we beat our targets for 5 years.
Thank you.
Thank you. In my random order, the other candidates will also have a chance to answer that question, starting with Taylor Howarth.
Can I ask the young lady's name, if you don't mind? That spoke?
Your name?
Lauren. You speak exactly to my point. This is exactly why I'm here. I can totally relate with that. I'm a recent graduate of ethics at St. Paul University in the Department of Philosophy. I have a $45,000 debt. I don't have a car. I don't have enough money to even think about putting a down payment on a house. I struggle to pay for a bus pass to get around the city to get to work. I luckily have a job where I make a decent wage, but I'm still struggling. And not only that, but we have to look forward and think about what the kind of debt that this province is in, and this is the burden that we're going to be carrying for the rest of our lives. And so I completely can relate to the pressure that you feel to look forward for change, to find some alternative solution. And it's not easy. It's a complex issue, but it's definitely very close to my heart.
Thank you, Ms. Howard. Next on the random list, Mr. Matt Young.
I got 2 points here. John, just because other governments chose to spend money they didn't have and mortgage my kids' future doesn't make it right. The second point, and this one goes right to the credibility of the Liberal plan. The Conference Board of Canada and internal Liberal economists have said time and time again, there is no Liberal plan to balance the budget by 2017 or 2018. It's all fallacy, it doesn't exist, the targets are not nearly aggressive enough. They cannot get to a balanced budget on the path that they're on today.
Next on the random list, Mr. Post.
Well, I think right now that Ontario is at a crucial time fiscally. What's happened here is I feel badly for the young people of Ontario because they're going to be burdened with a debt that's going to be insurmountable. And it doesn't seem to be getting better. We get higher taxes and we get less services. Eventually the well is going to run dry. I know as a small business owner, I run my business, I pay my mortgage, I pay my taxes, and I'm not any better off than having a job basically sometimes at McDonald's. And until the government starts running with some form of transparency where we see where our tax dollars are allotted, then they're going to continue to do whatever they want. And until we can see where they're going to do with our money and let us know, then this is going to be a continuing cesspool. That's it.
Next on the random list, Mr. John Trammell.
Well, a lot of people might remember that I was called Ottawa's interest rate protester. I'm the guy who took the governor of the Bank of Canada to the Supreme Court to abolish interest rates. I used to bring a blackjack table to the meetings to explain to the dummy voters how poker chips could finance the game without paying interest to use their chips. 30 years later, your governments are still using their chips and taxing you to pay them interest. Suckers! And you wonder why there's no money left. Bankers take the first cut, and then you get the rest. And then you wonder, where's all the money? Hey, they got the first cut. Stop it. Run your own chips. Save the interest. Gee, you heard that 33 years ago. It didn't penetrate. Now at least your lives depend on it.
Next on the random list, Ms. Funicello, please.
Thank you. I think what we need to do is really take a look at the priorities. Both the Liberal and PC governments have put in place large corporate tax giveaways. We need to close the loopholes for corporations, and we need to make sure that we're investing in the right way. We need to increase our tax base by creating jobs and not simply increasing CEOs' large salaries and bonuses and giveaways while frontline staff are being laid off. We are committed to finding ways that allows people to have access to the services they need. And as a historical point of interest, it should be known that NDP governments across the country historically have a better rate of balancing budgets than any other political party, and that is something that we are committed to.
Thank you, Ms. Funicello. Next, Mr. McGruer, please.
This question is right up my alley. I'm a financial advisor. If my clients ran their finances the way the governments at various levels in Canada have done so for quite some time, they would be shut down, out of business, bankrupt, whatever term you'd like to apply to it. The fact that governments can continue borrowing and borrowing using your credit rating is the source of the problem. The fact that government is trying to run your life for you is the source of the problem. If I had a couple of hours, I could show you in exhaustive detail how the financial crisis was caused by innumerable government interventions in the economy, starting with central banks, moving on to regulation of financial companies, moving on to banking regulations. It just goes on and on and on. There were individual companies, entrepreneurs who abused what the system put forward to them, but they were given a corrupt system. The financial crisis had to happen. There will be more of them. Just sit around and wait if we continue along this path.
Thank you, Mr. McGruer. Mr. Bisson.
Decades ago, lodging, food, and the basic needs of life were the major expense of a family. Taxes were minimal. Today, taxes is a major part of a family's expense. So it's not a revenue problem, it's an expense problem. They spend themselves silly with the bloater bureaucracy and the bloater government, and that's where they have to start correcting first, and then they'll be able to balance their budget. We have 1 million people working in this province for the government in one way or another. That's got to stop.
Thank you, Ms. Bisson. And the last for this question, Mr. Reddings.
As a disability, I feel the burden. We're getting cut every time we take a look. Last provincial budget, we got cut in last year's budget. We got cut in certain programs that help us to improve our lives. And unfortunately, we have to find alternatives to look at, and possibility even investment in social bonds.
Thank you, Mr. Reddings. I believe we're